Alon, when's the last time you got sunburned?
Oh, I remember. I was in Florida. This was about 10 or 11 years ago.
Wow.
I was at a beach, and maybe I've been sunburnt in between then, but I don't like remember it like cuz it wasn't bad. This was that like a really bad one.
Yeah.
I fell asleep on the beach, and dude, I woke up like red like a fucking lobster. It was awful.
Been there, my friend. Been there. Because the reason I bring it up, what's going on, everybody? Just your opinion, man. Stephen Langford is out. We got my friend Alon filling in. Everybody knows Alon Desai from Vegas. And he'll be talking with us today. The reason I bring it up is because, as a fellow bald man, as you are,
Oh,
as am
yeah.
I, I'm very conscious about lathering up sunscreen these days. I have been for the longest time. I love to go on walks, but if it's sunny out, I always prepare and put some sunscreen on. SPF 30, pretty good. 50s, like you're good. You're golden. Hopefully you're not golden brown, but you're fine. So yesterday I went to the Oakland Ballers game, and I know Alon, kind of a sore subject. I know that you were trying
No, not
to
sore anymore.
not sore anymore. Alon
No.
was Alon was trying to get with them this summer to be their broadcast, but unfortunately did not happen. But went to the game yesterday, and it was kind of I was telling you before we started the podcast, it was kind of a heat wave this week. It was a little hot, but you experience way more hotter conditions in Las Vegas right now. What was it, 105 there right now?
Right now it's like in the 90s, but it'll be up to 104 today.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's hot. Okay, so people in the Bay Area shouldn't complain. But so yesterday, it kind of got back to the gloom June that we usually experience here the last couple years that I've moved back to the Bay Area. And in Oakland, it's kind of cloudy earlier on in the day, and then there's like an off and on again of sunshine and then clouds. So I got a sweatshirt, put a hat on, and I was like, I should be good. I know there's no shade at Ramondi Park.
Yeah, there's
Susan
not.
Slusser made that abundantly clear when she was covering the opening night game. So I was like, you know what? I should be good. And I'm usually very conscious about sunscreen. It's like I should be good. I'm gonna wear a hoodie and have my jacket on. I don't think I need sunscreen. It's gloomy out. I should be okay. Go there with shorts on. Should be fine. On and off again. It was a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of clouds, and I guess even through the clouds, I got burnt. I don't know how the fuck this happened, but all on my arms, not on my face so much. But it's the first time I've been sunburned in a long time. And I was like, damn, I try to avoid this because I don't know if you remember this, Alon, if you were working with me at the time. The second Warriors Championship parade, I got severely, severely sunburned. You remember this?
Yes, I do. I do remember that. I think I had just like came on right after that, but I remember hearing about how badly you got sunburned because the
Oh,
second one it was 27,
17.
the first Durant year, right?
Yes, the first
Yeah,
Durant year.
yeah.
I remember me and Bonte going through Oakland, and they had the parade just right over here. Oh God, I miss those days. It was right over at Lake Merritt, and they're passing out sunscreen. And my dumbass was like, "No, I'll be good. I'm Italian. Come on, it blends in." And nah, I got fried, and my nose blistered up. I had to go to the hospital. I remember later that week.
Uh,
I didn't go to the hospital that day. I just remember everybody being like, "Dude, you look bad." And then that night, I was like, "Oh boy, this is fucking bad." And the weird, gross peeling you get. And I stupidly peeled my nose, and it led scars. And I was like, Jesus, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital and get this looked at. Gianna Franco, who was, working at 95.7, and the mom of the station looked at me and she said, Derek, that doesn't look good. You need to get that checked out. I'm like, oh Jesus, okay. If Gianna tells me to, I'm going to. And went to the emergency room in Pleasanton, and I remember the doctor looking at me going, so you're here for a sunburn, huh? Wow. I was like,
Thanks.
I was like, yeah, the doctor's judging me for coming here. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you some lotion and I'll go away in days. Just don't worry about it. And I was like, okay. I was like, you made me so angry that I'm here. But yeah, so ever since that time, and ever since I've lost my hair, I've always been cognizant about putting sunscreen on. And yesterday I thought I was fine, but Apparently, there was sunshine through the clouds.
Did you ever go to Candlestick, like, when
Oh yeah,
for whether for baseball games or even football games, but like,
absolutely, I did. Absolutely, I did.
remember how the weather would get there? It was the same thing. It would be like cloudy, and then it would like all of a sudden the sun would break out and be like, okay, now it's time to take off all the layers that I brought with me,
Yep.
and then it would get cloudy again. But you get sunburn going there too, like as a kid. So
Same
yeah,
thing. Yeah, man.
it's weird. So what was the environment like? Because I've been around that level of baseball quite a bit,
Yeah.
and it can be hit or miss. But from everything I've seen, it looks like people are digging it.
Yeah, dude, it was fun. I did not get to go opening night, Tuesday night. That's when the big, grand hurrah of it, and it sold out quickly. I was hoping, I was telling Steven last podcast, I was hoping to get the hookup from JT Snow, but didn't happen. And I was looking, I took my sweet ass time in getting tickets, and I just waited and waited and waited. Even Steven said, like, I think they're selling out pretty fast. I was like, oh, they'll be fine. And stupidly, I waited, and then they sold out Tuesday night, and it was a packed house. But then I went yesterday with Adam Copeland. He and I went to the game, and it was fun, man. Like it
Yeah.
was, the whole environment is definitely a big fuck you to the A's. That is basically what it is, and I don't mind that. They celebrate the city of Oakland. They do a lot of great things in, you know, all recognizing the city, and they just do a great job of like, this is, Ramondi Field. Great people like Frank Robinson used to play here. They just do a good job of acknowledging Oakland and the city, and they have Hal, the hot dog guy, out there as the MC for the game. It's very fun, and yeah, it's a cool environment. Like there are apartments right next to Ramondi Field. So were you like I was going to ask you if you were going to get that job, were you thinking about just getting an apartment there?
No, when I was talking about it with Tyler Peterson, who's their play-by-play voice, and like I wanted that job so bad. I was made the last four and didn't get the final
Yeah.
cut. But
I was hoping you get that job too, man. That'd be fun.
it would have been awesome. But anyway, I was just gonna still live in the Bay Area, like over with my brother, and then just do the commute thing. But it's in a neighborhood, which is great, and it's also a neighborhood which is like, when I say neighborhood, there's apartment buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just got that, I don't know, old school feel. Like I love baseball stadiums and fields like that are plopped in the middle of like some little residential area or like a light industrial mixed use area. Like I love that rather than some behemoth stadium. And like I love the Coliseum and big massive stadiums, of course, but there's something about being that close to the action that's so great. So it's a cool little place. And the fact that they were able to renovate it and get it to where it is with, I think, like $2 million. It's kind of it's kind of remarkable because they made a ton of improvements. I mean, they tore the whole damn thing up and then put those stands up, and then they had to do everything, and they put the scoreboard in, and they're gonna do, I think, like movie nights on the field and all kinds of different events. Yeah. So I mean, and the park is open for they say public use. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it's not just for the ballers. I mean, the community's going to be able to use it as well. So no, it's a cool. So you enjoyed it. You liked it.
I had a great time. Is it, Major League Baseball? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But as far as the environment, yeah, the food trucks were out, craft beer was served, all local stuff. It was awesome. Hot dogs were good. Yeah, I was thinking about like, if you live right next to Ramondi Field, I mean that's awesome. On your weekends or weeknights, you can just walk over to the ballpark if you want to pay $20 to just go watch a Ballers game. That's sick. Also, if you live right next to there, it could probably get loud and that probably be annoying. But it's also kind of cool just to like, hey, okay, I'm gonna walk out, kind of 5 feet from my house, and then just see that there's a stadium right there and go watch a baseball game. I think that's pretty cool. And the turnout wasn't bad. For yesterday, I saw Casey Pratt. He was out there with his kids. It's a cool environment. And I think that more Oakland people are going to show up and support the Ballers. And as far as the game itself, Ballers lost. They lost to those damn YOLO high wheelers. But it's pretty much a boomer bust league. It's in the Pioneer League. It's pretty much dongs all the way around. Baseball, home runs. Me and Adam Copeland had a fun time just being like people were stealing bases and getting home run after home run. We were like, now that's baller ball right there. But no, it was good. I don't know if they're a good team or not. It's hard to say because it's a lot of inexperience and guys you don't know. They did have, I believe, a woman pitch this past week
Yes.
for the Ballers. She tried out a couple weeks ago at Laney College, and so that's pretty cool that she got the opportunity to do that. But yeah, man, I thought it was fun, and I'll give you my whole schedule that I had this weekend. Went Friday night to go to the reverse boycott in Oakland for the A's. They did another one.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah,
I don't understand reverse boycott. I get it, but I always look. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I know. That was my deal last year. I was like, I understand the fun. I had more fun this year going to the home opener and against the Guardians and hanging out in the parking lot with all the people.
Oh, you went to that?
I went to the home opener and it was awesome. Remember Stephen Babs?
Yeah. Mayor sports guy?
Yeah. His shtick now is to dress up as Dave Cavill and go to these things and do like a fake Dave Cavill thing. It's actually pretty good. But yeah, like it was cool going out there. Me and Carl Buszczyk were there when the season opened, and we were in the parking lot just having fun. They were just pretty much a big fuck you to Dave Cavill and fuck John Fisher and just celebrating the A's. And while people did go into the stadium that night, it was awesome, the environment in the parking lot. Now, I do remember last year doing the reverse boycott, just going to the parking lot and seeing Carl and our friend Elena, and everybody was going to the game, and I was like, I don't really feel comfortable going to the game. It's just weird for me. I don't judge anybody that wanted to go to the game, but I did kind of feel like, damn, did I miss out? Because I remember last year, I forget who they played, but they won the game, and it was a great environment. The whole stadium was packed, and I kind of regret not going to that, even though I didn't feel comfortable. So this year, Carl was like, hey, let's get tickets, let's go. And I'm like, all right, let's go. I decided I might as well go to an A's game this year. I have to go. This is it. They're going to SAC next year. I want to experience it. So I show up. I see Carl Buszczyk. I see Damon Bruce in the parking lot. We're talking. Him and Damon Amendolara actually did a show in Oakland at, I think it's called Lane 51, a brewery around here in Oakland. So they did their own podcast / stream show. And I said what's up to them. And then me and Carl went into the stadium for the game. And if anyone advertised this thing as being the same as last year with the reverse boycott of the stadium being packed, that was not the case. Very, very empty. A little more than usual, I would say, but it wasn't a big turnout. And I think it's because people are kind of defeated, unfortunately. Now that it's the finality of it, that they are going to Sacramento and then eventually Vegas, we'll see about that even. I think kind of people were just like, I just want to stay away at this point because the reverse boycott, like, what does it prove right now? At this point, John Fisher has his money and he's going to go, and it's good. Like, there was a few chants. There was a sell the team around the 5th inning, which I got in on, and then I had fun with Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and I changed all the words to sell the team, like sell the team. I was the only one doing that, but they wanted to walk off on Friday night against the Toronto Blue Jays. So it was good to go back to the Coliseum, and I plan on going again before the season ends. But it was just a reminder of, like, damn, like, this is over. Like, just walking around the stadium and so many concessions closed down and just no one really giving a shit. Like, I'm getting more nostalgia about, like, summertime lately with Steven. We were talking about, like, old movies and, music that came out in the summertime and going to baseball games. And God, I just remember 20 years ago, more than that, 25 years ago, early 2000s, even late 90s, going there, that stadium just being full and just going there every day with my dad. And it was just a blast. And now for it to be just half empty, God, it's brutal to watch.
They would draw, I mean, in the heyday, when we were younger.
Yeah.
I mean, above 1.8, 1.9, above 2 million people a year. And for that Coliseum, before everything was tarped off and everything, that's a lot of people. I mean, you're getting 25-ish thousand people a game, maybe more, right? And so, and then on some nights it's completely packed. And I think the last time I really had an experience at the Oakland Coliseum for the A's where it was completely packed was maybe in 2018, 2017-ish, like the Dodgers would come to town or whatever, and a night game, and when the A's were really good and the place was sold out, and it was like, damn, this place is rocking. Or during the playoffs, right, when they'd host a playoff game, and it's like,
that 2019 wildcard game against the Rays.
Exactly, games like that, and you're just like, wow, this place is awesome when it's like this. But at the same time, that place, when it's like how it is now, because I went to a handful of games last year, and I remember taking my niece and nephew over there, and they'd been to A's games before, but not since it's been like this. And it was just weird, man. Like, you're right. Things are closed. People kind of feel like, well, this is over. And then regarding the boycott stuff, I think a lot of people got all that stuff out of their system last season.
Yeah.
And because there was still a glimmer of hope for a lot of them, they thought, oh, there's a way that they can stay here. There's an avenue somewhere, right? But then this year, the door is shut on that. I mean, whatever happens, the A's are not going to be in Oakland. And they might not even be the A's anymore. Who knows? But that doesn't really matter. What matters to the people in Oakland and the East Bay and the Bay Area as a whole is keeping a baseball team there. And so now that the door's kind of shut on that, I think a lot of people are like, well, I'll just go rage out. Like, that's why the parking lot thing was so successful. It was because we're not going into the stadium. We don't give a damn, actually. This is the sad part, too. I think the A's could be really good this year. Like, hypothetically, if they were really good this year, they still would have very low attendance. I don't think people would be so quick to forget. Now, if they were a really competitive team and I was living in the Bay Area, I'd be at every game because I'm just like, where else can I pay $5 to go see the best players in the world go play? The Oakland Coliseum. But at the same time, I totally get why people are they're out on it. And so it's a boon for things like the Ballers at Raimondi Park. It's a boon for people to go do other things. And in some senses, summer baseball, collegiate league baseball attendance is up in the state of California. People are going to more of that stuff. So, like, for instance, if you live in Lincoln, right, you're going to go to a Lincoln Potters game or something like that. You don't to Healdsburg to go watch a game there. You're going to go to Danville to go watch like the Crawdads players, stuff like that. There's people that are going to go do other things rather than spend their hard-earned money on a team that's about to leave them.
There's a team in Danville?
Yeah, they play over at Monte Vista.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, they're part of the CCL, and the thing is, they've had a few players now go to the Major League Baseball. One of the guys who played there a few years ago, his name's Trevor Warner. He's a hotshot third baseman for Kansas City, and he's like quickly risen up their farm league rank. So I mean, it's college players, but it's like good college players that are going to go to Major League someday. But anyway, like, yeah, you see this whole phenomenon happening, and what I really wonder is, so you remember, did you go to the Jacksonville game versus the Raiders before they left their last game at the Coliseum?
No, I did not go to that game where they threw beer bottles at Derek Carr. No.
Yeah, that game. So I wonder if we're going to see not beer bottles on the field and stuff like that, but I wonder if we're going to see a turnout for like the last game in Oakland.
I hope so.
Or if it's going to be so disinterested and so, F you that we're done and people are not going to go. No, I wonder that.
I think people are going to soak it in one last time. The problem is the last game is a day game against the Rangers. And that's tough for me because I got to do a radio show. I would love if that game was at night. It's actually was funny. Bruce Bochy came on with Tolbert and Copes this week, and he was like, well, fellas, I'll be out in the Oakland Coliseum for the last game in Oakland. You should come out for the game.
Oh, can't.
And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, Bruce. But, I mean, I would love to. I think that week you'll see more people show up. I think that because of the finality of it and people want to soak it in, people will attend. whether it's the last game or leading up to it, people will go to the Coliseum.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of Bruce Bochy, hey, Giants doing pretty well in Arlington. I mean, not today, but they're about to take a series no matter what.
I want to talk about this real quick. So, for those of you trying to watch the Giants game, it's on Roku today.
Yeah,
The
Roku channel.
The Roku channel. Now, I'm well aware of Roku. I have a Roku. That I have 2 TVs, so I have my Xbox that's on one and Roku for the other one. And Roku is basically just, kind of like a Fire Stick or whatever. You can just plug into your TV and you got, access to all the main Roku channel, which is what the Rich Eisen show is on now.
Yes.
And basically all the other apps. That's how I watch YouTube TV. But that Giants game today between the Rangers and Giants is exclusively on Roku TV. Meaning, even if you want to watch the game locally, you still have to watch it on Roku TV. So either you have to have a Roku device or you have to sign up for Roku. And I don't know if that costs money. It probably does. So that seems like a waste for one fucking game. That's ridiculous to me. Meanwhile, Apple TV had the Yankees and Dodgers on Friday night. And the thing with baseball and streaming is even if the game is on streaming, you can only watch on that streaming platform. Now, with the NFL and streaming, they've made it available to local markets. So let's say the Niners or Raiders are playing on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. You still could watch that game locally on a local channel. But for whatever reason, baseball has decided that they want you to watch this game on the streaming platform, and you're going to pay your money to watch just one motherfucking game on a 165 or 182 game schedule. Oh no, sorry, I'm thinking of basketball. 165 games, right? In baseball.
Oh well, 162, but then
162.
there could be playoff, wild
Yeah.
card, all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. So 162, and they want you to pay money just for one game, whether it's on Apple TV or Roku. And Apple TV decided, or I guess the LA and New York markets decided that because the Dodger and Yankee series is so big that they're going to show that on local channels, which is bullshit to me. Just because that those teams are huge, that should be something for every baseball team. Every local market should have the ability to watch their local teams. So I got a ton of text messages from people I work with being like, are you fucking serious? The only way I can watch this is on Roku? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, or you can listen to the game, but a lot of people don't like doing that anymore. But
well, I mean, hey, we'll take that on KNBR. But if you want to watch the game, you don't have that ability.
So, you don't have that ability.
I think, and look, I'm not some old fuddy-duddy. Like, I know that things are changing in the progression of streaming, and I'm all for it. Like, I understand that if you want to watch football, you got to get Peacock, you got to get Amazon, you got to get Netflix to watch all that stuff. It's all happening this season. The first game of the season. Well, not the first game. Second game that's going to happen this season is on Peacock between the Packers and Eagles. You have to have streaming to watch games, but the NFL gives you the opportunity to watch those games locally. Baseball is fucking up big time by not having that ability for their fans. Fans are not able to watch games. I think that's a huge problem. A huge problem.
It's a massive problem when they supposedly resurrected the game last year by instituting new rules and making the game more fast paced. And they were such a push for that, and people responded really well to it. So then not to double down, but then to take what you did and then do something like this and basically test it out to see if this is something we can do long term in the future. I agree, because and they're not doing it, like you said, they're not doing it for the Dodgers and the Yankees. It's very much a situation of when the NFL was like, we're going to put Jacksonville and I don't know, take some other dog water team at the time and put them in London. And it's like, we're going to take a home game away from these two crappy teams and put them over in Europe. And at least you can still watch it on TV. But if you're a season ticket holder, you're screwed.
Yeah.
But this is the same kind of situation. It's like, let's take some teams that, maybe aren't doing so well or whatever the case is, and test out if people want to pay for it on this streaming device or streaming app. It almost reminds me in a way of when this maybe was 8 years ago. Oklahoma, I want to say, and Army had a pay-per-view game. Their game, a football game, and it was a
Yeah.
paper. It did really well. I think the numbers on it were really good, but also I'm like, okay, that's college football. College football's weird. People are weird about it. I don't see that happening with Major League Baseball unless they one day want to get to a point where it's like you can watch all the games through our MLB streaming app, and the way it works is you pick teams that you want to subscribe to and you pay individually for those teams. And then it's like, well, Jesus, what are we doing here? I'm going to have to pay $30 a year for every single team I want to watch. Like, I don't know. It could get to that level of insanity.
It probably will.
And because they know people will pay for it. People at the least will be like, so you're a Giants fan, right? So a person's a Giants fan. They'll say, okay, I'll pay my X amount of money a year to just watch Giants games, right? In and out of market. But the problem is everybody's been so used to the Giants are on whatever it's called now, NBC Sports
Bay Area.
Bay Area. So I don't know how it's gonna work. I do know this. I remember when Apple TV started doing the baseball thing. I tuned into a few of them, but largely, and I have a Roku TV. I don't even think to go there when there's a game on that stuff. So I don't watch it. I just end up following along online. So like, I don't know what Helio Ramos has done today. I don't know if he's done anything today because he's, tore it up the last two games for the Giants against Texas. And I'm sure Bruce Bochy somewhere is a little bit happy about that since he thought maybe he would be the manager of the Giants if that guy ever came up. But I don't know. I don't like it. I think, look, we already pay so much for cable packages and all these channels already. Why try to get people to sign up for another one just for one or two games a year?
Yeah, it's ridiculous to me because I know we're going that route, and yeah, like I said, streaming is here to stay. That's how we'll watch everything. And I know that the markets that had Bally TV Sports, now I think you have to like pay a subscription to watch your team locally. So I get like, NFL is very much in the streaming platform. The NBA is going to get there with Amazon, their deal with Amazon. But baseball needs to figure this out a little bit better because there's so many games, and to act like one individual game is worth buying, a Apple TV subscription or Roku, I think is ridiculous. That's just crazy to me.
No, I'm on the same page with you. It doesn't. Maybe some nerd somewhere who works for one of those companies or Major League Baseball itself is like, oh, well, I crunch the numbers and this makes sense. So I get an extra 3% profit. And it's like, well, yeah, you might initially, but there's also going to be some goodwill loss that you already just built up last year with your rule changes. So why even fuck with it? Why do that? The NHL does stupid shit like this. Not so much on the streaming thing, but they're always doing things that end up lowering viewership for their sport.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to see baseball's got enough problems already. I don't want to see baseball start to tinker and do too much like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have to pay for Roku. Just regardless, though, like to have to sign up for it and everything, like I think it's just a little too much.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's it's one baseball game. You could put this game on locally on whatever channel that you want to do that with. You could show the same broadcast if it's the Roku channel. Just put it on locally. I don't get that. That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, don't black out local fans. I mean, that's a pretty simple rule, in my opinion.
Alon, how hot are you on this whole Caitlin Clark situation? Are you up in arms as everybody else?
Well, obviously, I don't really like the. I don't know. I don't care. I'll be honest. I was not a fan of hers in college. Like, I thought it was great what she was doing for the game and everything. But every time she was on the court, I rooted against her.
Why is that?
Because she's in the Big Ten, and I, prefer to see SEC schools win.
No,
but,
very fair, very fair.
As a player, I mean, her scoring record and all that kind of stuff. No, it's fantastic. But at the same time, I can also understand why players in WNBA are not taking too kindly to her. That being said, I think it's kind of worn out as welcome. Like, you guys have all welcomed her to the league, so she'll probably chill now. She's kind of making everybody money with what she's doing. So,
but is she now? I don't know what went into her being left off of Team USA, but Is this an Isaiah Thomas situation where she was left off because nobody likes her?
See, that's hard to believe because, but I would say this: the Team USA women's team without her will still win.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the thing is there is definitely some animus there from people around the WNBA towards her, but at the same time, I think some of these people got to wake up and say, wait a sec, she's bringing all kinds of eyeballs and visibility to our league that we never had before. And there are very few teams that have been profitable for a while in the WNBA. The Las Vegas Aces, I believe, are one of them. But like the thing is, it's like, okay, you had your fun by like, hey, welcome to the league rookie thing, but let's not go overboard on this because if you do it, you're gonna piss off her fans, and she's got a lot of fans.
Yeah, definitely. And you want that attention. I will say, I saw the reaction to most people yesterday on Twitter being like, how could you leave her off the team?
Um,
And I don't watch. I'm not going to pretend like I do. A lot of people are saying she's not having a good season. And now, is it based on what she did in college? Okay. And do you want her to be a part of that? Because, it's every 4 years. Yeah, I understand that too. But I also call out like just people that want to have a sports opinion on anything and don't really know what's going on. Like, I'm sorry, but I think you're full of shit if you're just like not caring too much about WNBA or women's basketball in general, and then you freak out on Twitter, be like, how could they leave her off the team?
yeah,
To me, this whole conversation with her, and me and Steven talked about it, but this whole conversation with her, I think is a little much. I understand that the WNBA is growing in popularity, and I am happy about that. But am I watching? No. I think that a lot of people are just having the opinion because we are in a very slow sports time. This was prior to the NBA finals starting, and you know, First Take and all these debate shows are not going to talk about baseball. They don't do that. Um, I
yeah.
think a big thing of why this thing has developed into the hot topic that it is because there's elements obviously of sexism and race, but also let's be real, ESPN is in bed with the WNBA, so they want this product to be out there, and they're going to discuss Caitlin Clark and the animosity that maybe Angel Reese or Kennedy Carter have with her. I don't know what exactly it is, but I think that a lot of people being up in arms about it is phony to me. I think we're just making arguments just to have debates on TV, and that those topics sell. But I would say that a lot of people that are up in arms about it are just like, okay, whatever. Like
it,
once we get to training camp and once we get to, NBA free agency, then no one will give a shit, to be honest.
I think once tennis takes center stage on ESPN with Wimbledon and everything like that, I think all that story is going to go by the wayside because there'll be a big event where and that'll like ESPN definitely does have agendas with what they cover. They're like, oh, we're in bed with this league, like we have a
Yep.
contract with this league, so we're gonna give massive coverage to that. Well, ABC and ESPN covers tennis, the biggest tennis tournament in the world, so they will spend a lot of time covering that.
Yeah,
And
but well, hold on, but just real quick. You think Stephen A is going to argue about tennis though?
no, it's not. It's not so much that they'll argue about tennis, but we'll already be in a post NBA Finals world, and we'll be, like you said, closer to training camp. So what I'm saying is there's going to be so much more filling up the sports world, like globe, in terms of what ESPN's coverage will be, that there will be less time allotted to those Caitlin Clark stories and trying to almost manufacture talking points about it, which is in my opinion what's gone on. And like you said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've gone to Aces games, but I don't follow the WNBA very closely at all. If it's on TV and I'll watch, sure, but like I'm not, I don't have a dog in the fight. So
Yeah.
when I see some of these opinions come out and people like, oh, and I'm like, okay, so there's a couple of scenarios here. You're either a diehard Caitlin Clark fan and you loved what she did in college the past couple seasons. I understand that. Or this is the new hot topic and you want to get on the bandwagon
Exactly.
with it. And I
Exactly.
think it's a lot more of that than the former, right? So I think it's a lot more the latter than the former. So I don't know. I do think there are. I agree with you. There's definitely elements of race and sexism and things like that going on. But I also think there's a lot of journalists who are piling on and using those talking points. They're using this event or these moments as a catalyst to then further talk about things like that. And it's like, why don't you just go write an opinion piece on those things rather than try to shoehorn this Caitlin Clark thing? What if it's just a fact that all these women in the WNBA think she's a bitch because she made so much money on NIL? I don't think that. But that's another thing that people really need to take into consideration. She was a college superstar when NIL was a thing. So that's never happened in the WNBA before, right? I mean, her and Angel Reese pretty much. But so she made all this money through NIL. She's got this massive sponsorship deal with Nike. And I sure, there's a lot of jealousy there.
Yeah.
So, but the way to argue for, and I think this is the crux of it, the way to argue for other players and people to care more about other players in the WNBA is not to denigrate her. It's to show that it's a product that's viable and that people are actually interested. And if anything, I think Caitlin Clark proves the point because, like you said, she might not be having that good of a season. I haven't looked at her stats, but if that's the case and she's still drawing eyeballs, that shows you that there is interest there. But the way to, garner that interest and keep building on it, fostering it, isn't by, let's all pile on and make some big media story out of it. I just think that's going to turn people off.
I agree, but also I believe that it's getting big to the point where everybody's going to have an opinion about it, and that's okay as well. Like, I don't think it should be on, the WNBA reporters or people that actually cover the league to be like, well, we actually know what's going on, so everybody else can have an opinion.
No,
and I think just having an opinion for the sake of having an opinion, I think is lame. But also, I don't think that people that work in the league can tell everybody, well, you don't know actually what's going on, and you're just here because it's popular now. You weren't here 4 years ago. It's like, yeah, but things change. People dictate what is popular, what's not popular. And this is a popular topic right now, but I think it's popular for maybe the wrong reasons. I think what stemmed from being just is this a basketball player or not with Kennedy Carter to now, do people not like her because she's the white girl in this sport? I think it's definitely turned into something more venomous that I'm just like, I'd rather just not have an opinion, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the part that I don't like about it. So if it's a case of, hey, rookie, take your lumps kind of thing, like, wow, look how much money you make and we've been doing this for years kind of thing. All right, I understand that. But when it turns into the whole, like, actual venomous, like, animosity kind of thing, no, I don't like that at all. Like, why get mad at someone because they've made so much money as a college player? Sorry, that's the reality we're living in now. Yep. That's going to start happening. So, I mean, Caleb Williams is a perfect example of it.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going to end up happening with it. What I really hope is that she ends up playing pretty well in the WNBA and it just kind of goes away and people are like, wow, she was a good pro. Like, I don't know, because otherwise, if it turns into this, right, and not just with the WNBA, but all sports, if it turns into, wow, this player like was the king or the queen in their respective sport, and they're already at the mountaintop, they've made so much money in college, when they get to the pros, we're really going to show. It's like, I don't know if we need that. I just don't. Not for those reasons. If you want to give a rookie their lumps, do it for legitimate reasons, not because they made money through NIL.
I'm glad you brought up Caleb Williams because, Caleb, the Bears are going to be on Hard Knocks, mainly because of him. Yeah. They're going to have nationally televised games because of him. And you think, like, people on the Bears, that storied organization for years, one of the longest franchise in the NFL, is like, what the hell? Do we really need Caleb Williams being the guy that pumps up our franchise again? That's bullshit. Of course you do. Of course you want that. Of course you want that. He's a star on the team now. It's something in a quarterback that franchise has never had.
No.
So, yeah, to me, the whole thing is crazy. Like, I can understand if you are a player in the WNBA and you get asked constantly about Caitlin Clark, that's annoying. I completely understand that. But if you're going to be like, let me just fuck her up in a game because I want to, like, that's ridiculous to me too. So you have to acknowledge that things are going positively because of her. You have to acknowledge that.
Yes, no, 100% agree with you, Derek. And so I just bring up Caleb Williams because I think this situation is similar because of the superstar power that they had in college. But you're
Yeah.
right. Are the Bears going to be like, oh, F Caleb Williams? Like, no. Other teams are going to be like, I'm going to sack the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
But not because, he's lived in a penthouse in LA, not because
No,
of those things.
because it's the same thing. It was like, okay, this guy thinks that he's hot shit in the league, and
Yeah.
now we're gonna give him his welcome to the NFL moment. I get that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in the WNBA that feel that way about Caitlin Clark. That's fine,
Yeah.
but there's also like, that play with Kennedy Carter was dirty. It was dirty. Like
Yeah.
you can rough somebody up, but I don't know. The whole thing has gotten crazy in my opinion. Speaking of collegiate stuff, I want to get your opinion on this, Alon. Shams Charania was all about JJ Redick getting the Laker job. And he came out with a whole article being like he's the front runner. And I was like, okay, is this news? Like he said this before. What's changed? Basically, they're waiting on the NBA finals to end because he does the broadcast for them. And once that ends, then he'll announce that he's going to go be the Laker head coach. Come to find out that Adrian Wojnarowski had the scoop that actually the Lakers would prefer Dan Hurley, the two-time defending national champion head coach of the UConn Huskies, to be their head coach. And they're prepared to throw huge money at him. I watched UConn the last 2 years during March Madness. I can't say that I watched college basketball during the regular season, but everyone talks about this guy as being innovative and a beautiful mind when it comes to basketball. Funny enough and ironic enough, I saw the clip that most people saw of JJ Redick interviewing Dan Hurley on his podcast and talking about how he comes up with all these formation, off the ball screens, off the ball movement. And he's like, well, to be honest, I watch a lot of college football and I watch Kyle Shanahan. I watch the pre-snap motions, and that's something I want to implement in basketball. And LeBron saw the clip and he tweeted out, I love this guy. I love his whole staff. I love the offense. So you have to believe that LeBron's all in on Dan Hurley doing this. But if you're Dan Hurley, why? Why do you want to take the Laker job? Is it because it's LA and it's a storied franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers? Okay. Are they going to throw a shit ton of money at you? Probably. But getting a three-peat in college basketball is unique. And I think John Wooden's the last guy to do it with UCLA back in the day. So, and, is it set in stone that LeBron is coming back? Probably, if you're the head coach, probably. But there's so much more they got to do with that team. So I love to hear your opinion because you watch a fair amount of college basketball. What do you think about Dan Hurley potentially becoming the Lakers head coach?
I mean, he's been phenomenal at UConn, obviously. What he's been able to do, and now that it's kind of weird because UConn is a NCAA basketball like blue blood, but it kind of got forgotten until Dan Hurley got there, 4 years ago, and now with back-to-back championships, people are like, damn. And it's like, well, shit, he took Rhode Island to the tournament twice. Like, he's been good everywhere he's gone. He's one of those guys. So do I think he could be successful in the NBA as a head coach? Of course. But I'm with you. Why the Lakers job? Like, I don't. And why now? Is that really the situation you want to walk into? What if it doesn't go so well your first season? What if they're the 7th seed or the 8th seed or a play-in again kind of thing? And if that happens, are you going to get canned? Because there's no loyalty to head coaches in the NBA. I mean, there were people calling for Steve Kerr's head the last 6 months, 6-7 months. So
still are.
It's still are, which I don't Steve Kerr's amazing. I don't understand that whatsoever. So I don't know. So if it was me, and I know you're talking about history, going for a three-peat kind of thing in college, there's definitely an attractive bit about that. Also, the fact that, look, you're a college head coach, whether it's basketball or football, baseball, doesn't matter. You're the king of your little fiefdom, kind of, right? You make all the decisions. You have all the power. He goes to the NBA. He's having it. LeBron James is there. LeBron James is the boss. I don't care how much of a great coach Dan Hurley is. LeBron James is still the boss of that organization. And that doesn't mean that the coach can't coach, but it does mean that the power is not all consolidated with one person. Let's put it that way. So I don't know. And when the JJ Redick kind of report came out, I was like, okay, I guess I could see it, but I was like, why? Why JJ Redick kind of thing? I mean, I don't know. So Dan Hurley is a much better choice if you're a Laker fan because he's an actual coach.
Right.
But I don't I don't know. If I was Dan Hurley, I wouldn't do it. Not because of it's the Lakers, but because of the situation the Lakers are in right now.
I would totally agree. I think that the Western Conference is getting younger and younger with better teams. Luca and the Mavericks, obviously, in
Mhm.
the NBA Finals, you got OKC, you got the Timberwolves, you got the Nuggets. It would just be difficult. However, I understand the lore of the Lakers. I can't deny that. I know that I hate the Lakers, but they are the Lakers. I
Yeah.
understand that. But he's an East Coast guy, and he had to move his whole family there. Um, yeah, I mean, the JJ Redick thing, I was like, okay, that makes sense just because LeBron loves himself a coach that he could probably, you know, kind of bully into doing what he wants him to do, for lack of a better term. And there's been coaches that don't have head coaching experience. The best example is Steve Kerr, but he did have experience as a general manager prior to that. And there's been many instances of guys that went from retirement to coaching immediately, former players, Derek Fisher, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd
Jason
now
Kidd. Yeah.
was not successful early on with the Nets and the Bucks. Took them, I think took them to the playoffs, but I think a lot of people acknowledge that he needed to grow as a coach, and he became an assistant with the Lakers for a little while, then got the Mavericks job, and a lot of people are saying he's doing better as being a head coach. But yeah, if Dan Hurley comes over, I would tell LeBron also, okay, you got to do what he says. Like we're getting a big name head coach, something that he's never really had. He had Mike Brown, and he got him fired. He had Eric Spoelstra, but Eric Spoelstra was elevated from Stan Van Gundy's uh, staff, and he
Yeah.
wasn't he wasn't the great coach that he is today when he was with LeBron.
And
He's Go
yeah.
ahead.
I was gonna say, and Spolstra also had that major backing of Pat Riley behind him.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's a bulwark right there that you can't just ramrod through.
Yes. And also, there was many rumors that when that was going on. I remember when they asked LeBron, like, "So what do you think about the head coach? Should you guys get a better head coach in there with Miami?" And he goes, "We got a good coach right now." Now, if things weren't panning out, you best believe that I think Spoelstra would have been fired and Pat Riley would have went down to the floor. But he's never he had Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham and guys that LeBron could convince the Rob Pelinka and the powers that be, Jeannie Buss, that they need to go. With Dan Hurley has all the leverage here. He can just be like, okay, I'll go back to college. I don't need to do this shit. I'll have another job just like that. So he could do it. But if I was Dan Hurley, I'd be like, then you got to pay me. You got to pay me significantly. And I don't think that's fair either. Like, there could be a case to be made that the Lakers, with how much money they have, should make him the highest paid coach in the league. Would that be ridiculous? Absolutely, it would be. But if you're Dan Hurley, you got to make it worth my while. Why am I leaving a fantastic situation with UConn, the chance to make history with a three-peat, and I'm going to just throw that all away to coach LeBron James? You got to make it worth my while. Right now, Steve Kerr makes $17 million a year. God, I hate saying this. I mean, if you're Dan Hurley, do you ask for 20? You ask for
Yeah.
18? Probably. Why not? If you don't get it too, I get that. But I don't know, man. Like,
It's
if
it's
I was Dan, I wouldn't do it.
it's almost a way of, I don't want to say ducking the job, but right when you ask for that much money and they say, we can't do it, you're like, okay, that's fine. I asked for a lot because that's what I would need to take that job. Because there's also the risk of going to the NBA and it not working out. And from, a more self-centered point of view, if you're Dan Hurley, you're like, wow, I didn't ruin my legacy, obviously. I'm still a great
Yeah.
coach, but now everybody's just say, oh, well, he couldn't get it done in the NBA kind of thing.
Right.
And the NBA is a league where it's very easy not to get it done. Like Billy Donovan, great head coach, right?
Mhm,
Really
mhm.
amazing in college and pretty good in the NBA. And it's like people kind of look at him like, he was all right. And it's like, it's hard to win in the NBA. It's really tough. I mean, it's hard to win in college basketball too, but if you're in a position of power like you are at a UConn or a Duke or, back then at Florida, like, okay, you have some natural built-in advantages, but going into the NBA, a team that you've never worked for before, players that you've never been around, and then trying to install your program and instill your values, it can be very difficult. So if I was Dan Hurley, I would ask for more than Steve Kerr. I would say, make me the highest paid, and then I will have a serious conversation about coming. But otherwise, I don't see why it's advantageous for him to take that job.
Yeah.
And
No.
I do wonder. So Boston, who's in the finals right now, right? And they look like a juggernaut after game 1.
Yep.
But not the same Boston team that we saw a few years ago in the finals against the Warriors. Definitely not. But I wonder if they were going through the same situation as the Lakers are right now, if he would take that job because they're East Coast and he's already an East Coast guy. So I also think there's some geographical and cultural hurdles there for Danny Hurley to want to go over to LA and, restart everything over there. And when he's a Northeast kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, if the Knicks have another season where they don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and they're trying to, Tom Thibodeau's a good coach, but he's more defensive oriented. There's always a possibility they want to upgrade, and Dan Hurley would make a ton of sense with them. And he lives on the East Coast, UConn, not that far. I mean, Connecticut, close to New York, obviously is New York, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I can also see him, passing on the job, just saying, I want to stay. And then they have to go back to JJ. Then everybody's like, oh, well, now we got, the second choice. I could see him also taking it and not wanting to turn down what financially could be the biggest payday of his life. But let me ask you this, Alon. And I don't listen to this guy anymore. I used to when I was younger, when it was Mike and Mike. But Mike Greenberg, to me, is just kind of ridiculous when he's on Get Up or his radio show.
Oh, yeah.
On his radio show, he said, if Dan Hurley goes to the Lakers, this will be the death of collegiate sports. And his rationale is that NIL is killing so many things. The likes of Nick Saban are gone. So many guys are jumping ship in college football to go to the NFL. And there's really no strong presence in collegiate sports right now. Maybe only Dabo Swinney with Clemson. And right now that program is kind of taking a hit too. But you watch a ton of college sports. I think that statement's ridiculous. When you hear Mike Greenberg say if Dan Hurley leaves college to go to the NBA, then that's the death of collegiate sports. What do you say to that?
No, I'd talk about a manufactured talking point to try to get eyeballs and ears perked up. Like, that's ridiculous. So Nick Saban. Nick Saban's an old man. Like, could he have gone a few more years? Of course. Do some of the circumstances around college athletics now make him like, I don't know if I can do it again. Maybe, but he's old. Like, he's in his 70s. Dan Hurley's 51. So he still has, if it doesn't work out for him in the NBA, say he goes to the NBA, he can go back to college and people will welcome him with open arms. I don't think that's true at all. And yeah, Dabo Swinney's still a bedrock over at Clemson, but you got guys like Brian Kelly over at LSU. Like, okay, Jim Harbaugh left Michigan to go to the NFL. Well, Jim Harbaugh finally got to win that national championship that he worked so damn hard for to win at Michigan. And he had to go through hell to do it. I mean, he worked his ass off to get that done. And what does he want to do? He definitely wants a Super Bowl. He still wants that one that he lost against his brother with the Niners. So, no, that's so overblown. And the death of college sports. I think, if anything, college sports are going to become more high pressure, high leverage, whatever you want to call it, because of NIL. And I don't like every aspect of NIL. Like, I don't like that schools can just pay people now the way that it's going to work out. But at the same time, I don't mind players making money off their name, image, and likeness. But for someone like a Mike Greenberg to go on national TV or national radio and say something like, oh, college athletics are going to die, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And don't just talk about because this coach left. No, college athletics would die if, I don't know, people stopped watching college athletics and players stopped playing in college and everything became an amateur minor league, like, and without school affiliation. So to me, that's a total moot point that is just meant for talking heads to get people, riled up.
I 100% agree. I don't deny that the stars of collegiate sports are the coaches because they're the ones that are the fixtures that stay there for a long time. And then, obviously, after 4 years or whatever the time may be, players move on to go play professionally. But until the day that we see the ratings go down drastically, collegiate sports will always be there. People are going to watch college football. The conferences are all fucked up now. I don't love it,
Yeah.
and NILs make things interesting to say the least. But will people watch? Absolutely. You don't think people are going to watch Texas, Michigan, week 2 of college football? Absolutely, they're going to do that. And then
Yeah.
March Madness rolls around. You know how big of a gambling time that is? You know, Alon, living in Vegas.
It's
It's
huge.
huge. No, this is not killing collegiate sports. It just may it may make the coaches uncomfortable. Like Jim Harbaugh has been a good sport, and every interview that people ask him, like, has the NIL stuff or what happened a year ago with your sanctions and suspensions make you want to leave Michigan to go coach the Chargers? And he goes, no, it was just time for me. Now the reality probably is, yeah, he was pissed off with how the Big Ten handled all that shit, but I think that yeah, a lot of coaches are. I mean, Saban has pretty made it well known that he's not a fan of NIL stuff, and that's fine. But I don't think it's going to kill sports. I know there's a ton of intrigue with Kalen DeBoer, I'm sure, for you this season to see how he's going to do with Alabama.
Yeah,
So to say
there's
that, it's insane to me.
no, it's insanity. And so I think it just links into, and not calling Mike Greenberg an old man fuddy-duddy kind of guy, but like it links into the whole NILs doesn't suck, even though Nick Saban didn't like NIL doesn't mean I have to agree with him. He's not the Pope. He might be the king over in Alabama, but he's not the ruler of the world or anything like that. I don't have to agree with everything he says, but like the thing is, look at Caitlin Clark. Let's go back to Caitlin Clark here really quick. NIL has turned her into, her talent has turned her into a massive superstar, but the drive of the NIL and all the eyeballs and the sponsorships and all the different things that she's been able to access because of NIL has propelled her into massive superstardom. So, and that's just one player, right? That's just one player, not an entire league, nothing like that. That's just one person. She took over the sports world over the last calendar year, basically.
Yeah.
So, okay, are we having legendary coaches leave historic programs? Yeah, happens every 10 to 20 to 30 years. Bobby Bowden eventually had to leave Florida State. He was old. Jim Harbaugh left Michigan. He won his championship. He went out on top there. He got it done. He realizes how hard it is to win a national championship, not just because he's at Michigan in the Big Ten, which is a tough conference, just because it's hard in general, and probably went, okay, I did that. And then went, damn, there's an opening in LA and there's a really good quarterback there.
Yeah.
I don't have to recruit a good quarterback. I can go take a job with a really damn good quarterback right now. You know what? I still want to get that Super Bowl. I'm going down to LA. To me, it's as simple as that. I think if there wasn't an attractive job like the Chargers, right, with a ready-made quarterback already, I think he would stay at Michigan.
Yeah.
But as soon as he saw a guy like Justin Herbert and went, I can win with him, he went, okay, I think it's time to go now. And I know that's not good for talk radio or some of the people on TV, but in my opinion, it's as simple as that. It was just a good time for him to leave, like he said, and it was a tailor-made position for him.
I agree 100%. I think that a lot of coaches wanted that job. That Sean Payton did, but the Chargers weren't willing to pay him and the draft capital they would have to give up to get him. So I understand that. But yeah, a lot of people view the Chargers job as a good job because of the quarterback. So yeah, I don't fault Jim Harbaugh for, he did what he needed to do at Michigan. I never really saw him. I mean, I view him more as a college coach, but I never thought he was going to stay at Michigan for as long as he did. It was a solid 10 years, and he got the national championship. So he will live in infamy there. Well, not infamy, but he'll live being a god in Michigan. So the notion that college sports is dying, I think, is, like I said, ridiculous.
And real quick, Derek, there's a lot of people. It's just changed a little bit too, right? There's still a lot of people who want college coaching jobs, especially the ones at the top of the mountain, because they pay the most. They pay more than any other job. So it's like, all right, there's a trade-off. You have to deal with the NIL stuff now and the high stress, but you get paid a whole ton of money. So
Right.
some guys who are like, I just want to do ball. And I think that's where Jim Harbaugh is right now. He's
Yep.
just like, I just want to deal with football. So what if you just want to deal with football, what do? You go be a professional football coach.
Yep. No, makes sense. He doesn't have to deal with all the recruiting and stuff. He just, drafts the players, signs the players, coaches them on Sundays. Easy to do. Well, not easy to do, but easier. Speaking of the NBA Finals, Thursday night's game saw the Celtics kind of just beat the crap out of the Mavericks. Forget the final, but it was a thorough beatdown. And Jaylen Brown played great. Kristaps Porzingis coming off the bench scored 20. Jason Tatum had a fairly good game, but not his usual output. And my thought on the series was going to be always that the Celtics had the better overall team. The Mavericks may have the best two players on the court together, but it's not enough, I think, each game to beat what was the best team in basketball for the majority of the season. Now, things could change tonight, but from what I saw on Thursday, it's pretty clear to me that the Celtics are the better team.
Yeah, I don't think there's a question about it. The Celtics are the more complete team, too. They just have, at every position, they have people who can get it done. And I loved what I saw from Kristaps Porzingis. I've been a Porzingis fan since he got drafted, so I loved watching him do what he did.
You a fan of his rap too?
Yes, the double, triple-double. That one, yeah, that'll live on.
In infamy.
But what he was able to do was incredible, and I don't think he had a bucket in the fourth quarter, but they didn't need any buckets in the fourth quarter. I know the Mavs cut it to something like 8 or something like that in the third, and they had a pretty hellacious run there where they were trying to make a comeback effort. But every time that Boston needed something, they were able to get it. And it all started, I mean, if you just go back and watch the first quarter of the first game there, they were just, from the tip-off, they win the tip-off by being more physical. They just had more energy. They had more get up and go than the Mavs did. And it definitely helps when Kyrie Irving is not making any shots. And he had a rough game. And they didn't have enough assists. The turnovers, there weren't that many. I think there were like 12 apiece for both teams. But I agree with you. I think Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are definitely the best two isolation players on the court. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard for the Mavs to try to match the 3-point scoring output that Boston's able to put up. That being said, if you watch a lot of the defensive rotations that the Mavs had, I mean, there were a lot of open shots that they gave up, especially in the corners and the wings. But then there were other shots that Boston was taking, like Jason Tatum had a few. Kristaps had a few, but how contested are they when you're 7 foot, whatever he is? He can just shoot right over the top of you, a la Kevin Durant, guys like that. But they made a lot of contested threes. So I kind of wonder, okay, the bucket discrepancy, I think there was a 4 bucket discrepancy between both teams in favor of Boston in game 1. I wonder what happens if those contested threes don't fall. Is it all of a sudden a 5-point game rather than a 19-point blowout at the end of things?
Right.
So if I was the Mavs, and easier said than done, I would do everything I could. I mean, I might bust out like a full court or half court press, even 3/4 court, just try to get up on someone immediately, get some ball pressure going, stop the ball. They had a real tough time with that. And I would try to make it a game where Kyrie Irving and Luka can dominate the ball. And I know Luka had his points, but I think when those guys have the ball in their hands, eventually other guys will get open and it'll create opportunities for everybody else. I just didn't see enough of that in game 1. For the Boston, on the other hand, I think if they just keep playing physical, rebounding well, blocking shots, they look like they're rolling.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for the Mavericks to win in the series unless everyone else gets involved. Like, for whatever reason, I still don't know how Minnesota was not able to get some defensive game plan on Luka and Kyrie. Every game they had 30 points, it felt like. And I think Boston is willing to let them do their thing and then contain everybody else. So in order for the Mavericks to get some wins in the series, you're going to have to see more output from the other guys. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know, what was it, PJ Washington, other guys on the Mavericks, don't really know them.
PJ played well. PJ played well.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the Boston Celtics may just be a better team all the way around. And we'll see tonight. Things always could flip. Luka could have an amazing game where he scores 50, and that's the reason they win. But I think in order for the Mavericks to beat the Celtics in the series, they're going to have a team, an overall team, offensive output, and not just Luka and Kyrie.
I agree with that. And I think because all of us are Warrior fans, and I'm sure everybody in the chat or anybody who's going to watch or listen to this is also a Warrior fan, but it's such a different Celtics team, and not so much roster construction. I mean, the core of the roster is still there for the most part, but it's just a different mentality and a different level of performance out of this Celtics team than we saw against the Warriors. What, 2.5 years ago?
2 years ago. Yep, 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago now. So that was interesting to see. It was interesting to see this Boston team not just take it to the Mavs, but then really try to close out the game before the game even started. So it's definitely an uphill battle for the Mavs. Boston just keeps making shots. I don't know what the Mavs can do.
Yeah, it's very different than 2 years ago. It was the Celtics trying to go shot for shot with the Warriors and them just not having the offensive firepower. They didn't have Porzingis. They had Marcus Smart still. And I remember the big talking point was Jaylen Brown's ball handling was awful. The amount of turnovers that the Celtics had in that series against the Warriors was big. And, Steph Curry had 45 points in that game 5. So what was it, game 5 or game 4? I forget.
It was one of those middle games, but he had that flurry that he went on.
The one where he had the shot, over, he fell, kind of tumbled over. That's the moment that I remember him scoring 45 points. But yeah, I think Boston's going to win this series. I said in 6, so we'll see if that happens. And if they go up 2-0 tonight, then it's looking better in their favor. But you never know; things change when people go on the road.
Who do you think is more important for the Mavs, though, real quick, Derek? Do you think it's because I think Luka's going to get his? Do you think it's Kyrie as the linchpin for them to be successful?
Yeah, probably. I mean, in order for them to win, I think both of them need to score 30, and that was pretty much the formula against the Timberwolves. And it was just crazy to me that nobody on that team could figure that out after a while. And Boston has better defenders, maybe. I still think that Minnesota had a great defensive team this year. But yeah, I think it's going to have to be where Luka and Kyrie score 30 points in each game. And then you're going to have better outputs from other guys on the team as well. But it's just going to take a lot. And that's what happened the last series. They won in 5 games. The Celtics are just a juggernaut, though. So, and their 3-point shooting is way better than the Timberwolves. So, it's going to have to be where Kyrie kind of has to repeat himself from 2016 with LeBron in order to win this championship.
Yeah.
Let's move over to some football, Alon, because I want to talk some contracts with you. Big wide receiver money going down lately. Justin Jefferson, the biggest contract for a wide receiver in NFL history. He's the highest paid right now, obviously. He's the biggest non-quarterback paid right now. So he's got 4 years, 140 million. Let me just double check here. Yes, 140 and 110 guaranteed.
Yeah.
And the timing of this contract is very interesting because I would say he's the top guy. And now everyone else, there's many guys, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, and of course Brandon Aiyuk, who are looking to get paid as well. But I don't think any of those guys are better than Justin Jefferson. You could argue maybe Jamar Chase, maybe CeeDee Lamb, but I would still take Justin Jefferson over all those guys. And I would definitely not put Brandon Aiyuk or T. Higgins in that same category. But all these guys now, with the way the wide receiver money is going, I think most of them expect to make $30 million a year. And Justin Jefferson's making 35. To go through the other guys real quick, let me get my notes from a couple days ago of the current high-paid wide receivers. So prior to Justin Jefferson getting his deal, it was A.J. Brown who was making the most, and he was making $32 million a year. 96 total, 84 guaranteed. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's making 30 a year, 120 total, 77 guaranteed. And then it goes Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith. Jalen Waddle at 28 a year, 84 total, 76 guaranteed. To me, that's the closest comp to Brandon Aiyuk because Jalen Waddle is a number 2 on that team, and Tyreek Hill makes more money than he does. I still don't know if Brandon Aiyuk is a number one receiver. I don't know that. He could be. I think that if it's going to be in the future of him and Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings, then yes, he's the number one on that team. But Ricky Pearsall is going to be a different type of wide receiver, and in terms of the number one, he could be the go-to option because he's the guy that's always getting open. I think that right now in his career, Brandon Aiyuk has not accomplished the things of Amon-Ra St. Brown or Justin Jefferson or any of these other guys that got paid, A.J. Brown and all those guys. I don't think that he should be, like, I sent out the tweet when they announced the contract details of Justin Jefferson, and I tweeted out Jason Bateman from Ozark when he's like doing business deals, and he's like, that doesn't matter. That deal does not matter. That's what John Lynch needs to tell Brandon Aiyuk is like, I don't give a shit what Justin Jefferson makes. You're not Justin Jefferson. You're not going to make $35 million a year. You're not the number one receiver on the team right now. We can argue that it's Debo or Aiyuk or, whoever. Or even Kittle maybe. I just don't think that Brandon Aiyuk deserves $30 million a year. And along the likes of Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins, I'm not sure I pay those guys $30 million a year either. The only guy I would make a case for is maybe Jamar Chase. Maybe he's worth 30, but then, Jesus Christ, Joe Burrow is making 50. He's the highest paid quarterback in football right now. He's like at 55. So I don't know. I just don't think you could pay all these guys. So I'll ask you, and then I'll give my opinion, Alon. CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Brandon Aiyuk, T. Higgins. Do any of these guys deserve $30 million a year?
When you texted me about the topics that we were going to go over today, the first name that popped in my head when I looked at this topic was Chase, because I was like, okay, Justin Jefferson, his contract's still unbelievable in some ways because he's almost getting $30 million a year guaranteed.
Yeah,
because 110 of it is guaranteed. So he's only $2.5 million a year off of $30 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
But Jamar Chase would be the closest for me in terms of getting to that number. Brandon Aiyuk, I have my own opinion on what's going to happen with his contract status. But let's just talk about him and his place as a number one wide receiver. I think he's the best pure wide receiver on that team. But in Kyle Shanahan's offense and the way the Niners play, I'm not particularly sure if you need to pay a guy who is a pure wide receiver that kind of money.
Yep.
I mean, look at the things he's been able to do with Debo. And Debo is not the best number one, like pure wide receiver on that team. It's probably Aiyuk. But look at what he's going to try to do with Ricky Pearsall. You look at Aiyuk and look at what he's been able to do with Kittle, the tight end, and even let's go back to Juszczyk, a fullback. He can get fullbacks open and get them the ball. So I don't know if you need to devote a $30 million kind of yearly contract to a guy like Brandon Aiyuk. I'm not taking anything away from him saying he's bad or anything like that. I think he's a really damn good player. But at the same time, they just drafted Pearsall. So it might be a situation of, okay, why devote that kind of money? Why allocate those kinds of resources to Brandon Aiyuk when we can get a cheap option in the first round of the draft with a guy like Ricky Pearsall, even if they're not the same player? Secondly, I can see where Aiyuk does not get an extension. And some Niner fans might be like, whoa, why? Why would you not try to keep him? Well, you brought it up. There's only so much money to go around.
Yeah.
So he might not get an extension. He might play this last year of the contract out, and then it might become a franchise tag kind of deal, which from an organizational standpoint might be the best option for them is to do that rather than devote all this money and then have to make sacrifices in other places. The only time I could really think of this, the Niners, I think, have been like threading the needle here on their contract situations and keeping the core of their team together for a while under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Luckily, they've been able to have the cheap quarterback under Brock Purdy. But Purdy's going to have to get paid soon, too, because he doesn't have the 5 years that a first-round pick has, right?
Right.
He's got 3 or 4 as a seventh-round pick, and then eventually he's going to have to get paid. And if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's going to be a $50 million guy because that's just the way that the quarterback money's going. Even though I don't know if he is a $50 million guy, but that's probably how it'll go.
Yeah,
but
we'll definitely get to that in a little bit here.
when's the last time that the Niners really had to let go a guy that, or trade a guy away that they definitely wanted to keep as a core of their team? And it's probably the defensive lineman, Buckner, DeForest Buckner. So
Yep.
it was Buckner, and he ended up going to Indianapolis, right? That's correct? So they haven't been in this situation in a while. They also got defensive guys they got to pay, like the linebackers. So I I wouldn't do it. I would let Aiyuk play his contract out, and I'd franchise tag him. Sorry, Brandon, but I think that's just the most realistic option. And it's not because you're a bad player. It's actually because you're a really good player, and it's hard to allocate that much money on that side of the ball after you're already paying McCaffrey, and you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy coming up. Like, it's just, there's too much. There's not enough to go around.
I hear you on that. I think they will end up paying him, but it can't be an overpay. It can't be a ridiculous amount that is to the likes of Justin Jefferson. I think that would be just bad business. And if that's what Aiyuk is expecting, then I would look over his stats and be like, where are you getting this, man? Like, I'm sorry, but you had one All-Pro season last year. And I still don't know if Brandon Aiyuk is a number one receiver. I don't. Yes, I agree with you that he's more of a pure wide receiver over Deebo Samuel. But I also could see Brandon Aiyuk really wanting to get this contract done now because he may lose targets with Ricky Pearsall being there now. Like, I don't think people understand Ricky Pearsall. I could be just way too high on him, but I think he's going to be that type of guy that gets maybe 120 catches a season. He's that type of guy that can get the ball significantly. Like, he's to the liking of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, not in body size, but just his playing style of just getting open and getting, catches. And that's something that I've said a million times, and it's abundantly clear now that Kyle Shanahan was not happy about with Deebo Samuel not getting off the line of scrimmage against the Chiefs.
Yep.
So, and even Matt Mayoko had went on with Tolbert Copes and the morning show and Papa Lund this week on KNBR, and each time he said, it's not a guarantee that they're going to pay Brandon Aiyuk. It could be that they have to go into the season with him making $14 million, and then he has to kind of he has to prove it to them that he's willing to be the guy that they're going to give that big contract to. But, the way things are in the NFL now, a lot of guys don't play on lame duck years unless you're Dak Prescott with the Cowboys or
Josh Jacobs.
All the guys. Yeah, or Josh Jacobs. We'll definitely get Josh Jacobs a little bit here. Or all the guys the Cowboys have to pay, like Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. And all these guys are going to hold out. Like Dak will show up this training camp, I'm sure, but you won't see CeeDee Lamb. T. Higgins will not probably be at the Bengals training camp. I would assume Brandon Aiyuk is not going to show up. And then Jamar Chase, I have no idea. Just because if you have two wide receivers that are not showing up, then that's detrimental to your team. So we'll see about that. But I'll answer the question, Alon, and I want to get your opinion. I mean, yeah, the only guy I would give $30 million to is Jamar Chase. Maybe CeeDee Lamb, but goddamn, if you're paying CeeDee Lamb $30 million a year, then what the hell are you going to do with Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott? Yeah. So if I was the Cowboys, I would hold off on that and just try to figure out what the hell you're going to do with those three guys. I think Jamar Chase is the only guy you would pay $30 million to. And even that seems like too much to me.
Yeah, Jamar, I'm right there with you. I think Jamar Chase is the closest to the Justin Jefferson type guy where that's the money you allocate to him. I did hear some of the Matt Mayoko interview on Pop on Lund, and he also said, look, and this is the other kind of half of the equation here. If Brandon Aiyuk doesn't get an extension done, if they don't get an extension done with him, and he plays really well, it's only going to be more expensive in the future.
Yeah.
So you're also playing with fire there. But then again, it's like, are you going to make your decisions based off that? And I don't think the Niners should, and I don't think they will. If they do get an extension done, and I think all Niner fans would be very happy about it, you're right, Derek. They cannot overpay. And overpaying for Brandon Aiyuk would be $30 million a year.
Yeah.
I think if they can get him in that mid to high 20s range, I think you can live with that. But I think $30 million a year and over, or one of these outrageous, nearly $40 million a year contracts like Justin Jefferson has, even though only 110 of it's guaranteed. That's just way too much. And you bring up an interesting point with Pearsall getting the ball a lot. I still don't think that's the guy they should have picked, but there's a reason Kyle Shanahan picked him, and they're going to force feed him the ball.
Yep.
There's no way he's not going to be featured in that offense, because he's going to take load off of Kittle as well.
Yeah. No, and we'll see about Kittle's future this year. I think there's a lot of guys that this will be the last dance for. It's not just Debo. I think that you could look at Kittle and maybe Juszczyk, other guys that are making a lot of money. That this is going to be it. And paying Aiyuk and Purdy will impact that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Purdy, you were questioning whether or not he should make $50 million a year, and they will negotiate his. They will be able to go to the table after this season. They will be able to sit down. And Jed York's made it abundantly clear already. He told the media, we're going to have to reset the market for Brock Purdy, which I would not have said, but whatever. And right now, the going rate for quarterbacks on a new deal is $50 million a year, which is a good chunk of your salary cap. So let me ask you this first and foremost. We can see what happens this season, but right now, with the likes of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott, or even not Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. I mean, shit. Jared Goff, I think, is making the second most money right now, quarterback wise. Do you think Brock Purdy is worth $50 million a year?
No, but unfortunately, that might be what you have to pay.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I don't think most of the quarterbacks making 50. I think Joe Burrow is. I think Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah.
I can kind of make an argument for a guy like Matt Stafford, but he's at the end of the road here, so I won't throw him in. Lamar Jackson is probably the other one that I can say, okay, he's dynamic enough to where he just makes things go. But other than that, like Dakota Prescott or Deshaun Watson, all these other quarterbacks around the league, I don't see it. I mean, even Justin Herbert would be an interesting one to ask this about, because I think he could be worth that, and regardless of whether he ended up getting paid that or not. But I think he could be worth that. But right now, Brock Purdy, even with the great season he had last year, they're gonna have to pay him. But I don't think he's worth it. I don't. Like I said, I only think there's really two quarterbacks in the league who are worth that much money. Two.
So right now, the guys that make $50 million a year are Joe Burrow at 55, Jared Goff at 53, Justin Herbert at 52, Lamar Jackson 52, Jalen Hurts at 51, and that's it. So, and there's going to be other guys that want new contracts. Let me ask you this real quick: Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, any of those guys deserve $50 million?
Nope. There's guys that you named that don't deserve. I don't think Jalen Hurts deserves $50 million. I definitely don't think Jared Goff deserves $50 million. Yeah, but
all these guys, like, that's the thing.
It's the market.
When I say these names, I'm like, yeah, I don't see it. Like Trevor Lawrence, 1 playoff win. Jordan Love, 1 playoff win. Tua, 0. And I know they have all the stats. If I had to bank on someone's potential going forward, I would go with Jordan Love the most. I like him out of anybody. Trevor Lawrence should be that guy, but I haven't seen it yet.
Herbert.
Well, yeah, but I'm definitely amongst the names that have not been paid yet.
Oh, yes, correct.
I mean, Tua kind of rubbed me the wrong way with the way. I don't know if you saw his press conference or just when him talking to the media, where he was like, I'm not agitated, but I don't know what word to describe my contract situation. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand quarterbacks just settling for mediocrity. Like, I understand everybody wants to get paid. I get that. I understand that that's a big deal of why these guys do this thing. I'm not naive. But also, if you're Tua, like, I would love for somebody at one point, and I know this is never going to happen, but I would love for one NFL player to be like, I don't know if I deserve this contract. I don't know if I deserve that right now, because I haven't done jack shit. And yes, his stats are incredible. I think a lot of it has to do with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and those guys being so, fast and shifty. I still think that Tua at times is a one-read quarterback. He just sees the Tyreek's open, so he's going to just chunk it deep. But then when things go crazy, he's got to look around and see what his second option is. He's like a deer in the headlights. So I don't know if I want to pay that. Trevor Lawrence, I see the potential. I see him throw 4 touchdown passes in a playoff game against the Chargers. I also see him throw 4 interceptions in that same game.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love, I like what I saw, but it was mostly for the second half of a season. So to reimburse or not reimburse, but to pay those guys for so little accomplished, I think is ridiculous. But again, they probably are going to make 50 million, which is insane to me.
Yeah. Well, the salary cap for these teams cannot go up fast enough
Yeah.
because they're going to have to start. I mean, look, you named Jared Goff. When you're starting to pay Jared Goff that kind of money, it's like, great. Well, how the hell do you, if you got to pay Jared Goff that kind of money, how the hell are you going to build the rest of a team competitively without just knocking it out of the ballpark on drafting?
Yeah.
So you have cheap players.
I mean, the Lions, they're also in a tight window now where they're going to have to win because they paid Amon-Ra and Goff and Penei Sewell, and eventually they'll have to pay Aiden Hutchinson. Jared Goff, great season last year. Definitely not the second best quarterback in all of football.
No.
There were games last year where I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, there was a bad game against the Bears he had. There was other bad games where he threw maybe 3 interceptions or was turnover prone. But, yeah, I would not pay him. And they already did. He's the second highest paid quarterback of football. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
But hey, that is the market now. And I agree with you, Alon. I would not pay Brock Purdy. I would not pay all these guys $50 million. But that is the market. The same way that we have to acknowledge, like, good for Christian McCaffrey getting $20 million a year, but he deserves more. But that is the market. That, like, he does more than the average running back. So a lot of these guys not getting, big time money anymore. That's understandable because that is what the market is now.
Yeah, no, that's what the market is. And the thing is, I would think that you're in the same boat as me. Like, if you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. You're not just going to go find it. Like, you're going to do it.
Now he's earned that at this point, but 50 million's a lot.
It's just one of those things where you're like, I just got to bite down and just get through this because this is a lot of money to devote to someone who maybe doesn't tick all the boxes that you like in other quarterbacks.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, let's do a little Raiders talk. Because I feel like we haven't done that in a while. It's always good to talk a little Raiders with you, Alon, because you're a diehard fan. You live in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Speaking of running backs getting paid, Josh Jacobs did get paid this offseason. I'm not sure where he's in the pecking order now when it comes to highest paid running backs, but he got a good chunk of change from the Packers. And there was always, like a year ago at this time, we were wondering what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs and his holdout with the Raiders because it was him and Saquon, and they were franchise tagged. And the two of them were looking for big time deals. They were tagged, I think, for the average of $10 million a year, and then both of them settled for 1-year contracts that got them to, I think, a little bit more like 11 or 12, whatever it was between the two of those guys. And both of them left for different teams this offseason, teams that they felt like would put them in a better chance to win, and teams that actually appreciated them. But Raider fans have had an interesting relationship with Josh Jacobs. Last season, he went on Twitter and kind of insinuated that the team didn't want him around or whatever it was, or he just didn't want to come back. And fans have kind of questioned his move of leaving. Like even a couple of weeks ago, me and Steve were talking about how Raider fans were going after him because he was just happy to be in Green Bay. And we were like, okay, well, guys leave. So you got to chill out a little bit. But then Josh Jacobs, as I pull this up real quick, and hopefully there's no issues like we had last time when I pulled something up. Josh Jacobs went on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long. And he went into detail about why he had issues of going from Alabama, where you watched him a lot, Alon, where he had success winning, and then when he went to the Raiders, it was hard for him to deal with all the losing. So here's what he said with Chris Long on the Green Light podcast.
Was it hard for you in that 4 or 5 year period, beginning of your career, to say, like, am I ever going to get out? Was that stressful?
No, definitely. And that went in part to me leaving too. And I told him, I'm like, man, coming from Alabama, I went to championship every year I was there. Like, you feel me? Like every year.
Yeah.
Like I remember coming to the league and losing my first game, and I was mad, not talking to nobody. And a vet come up to me and like, "This the NFL. Like, you gonna lose." I'm like, "So y'all cool with losing?" Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was so different. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? For me, it was so different. So like that was one thing. Like, and then the most frustrating thing about it all, I feel like, especially when you got like me, you know, Tay and Max, you got guys that come in every day and work hard, and you don't get the results. And then it gets to the point where like, okay, I'm working hard and I'm doing every little detail, every little step, and I'm still not getting the results. So like, I didn't have the answers. That was a big thing for me too, man. I'm like, man, y'all want me to come back on a discount and lose? Like, I don't know how I feel about that.
So when you hear that, Alon, what is your reaction? Because like I said, you watched Josh Jacobs in Alabama, and he won a lot, winning national championships, and he's basically saying like, I just got tired of losing with the Raiders, and they wanted me to take a discount when I was leading the league in rushing, and I was like, hell no. So what's your reaction when you hear him say that?
Well, my initial reaction is it's unfortunate because I like Josh Jacobs. I think he's a good player. I think he's one of the better backs in the league. He's top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
But the problem is I think Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler really, screwed the pooch on this one. They messed it up. They had an opportunity to pay him and to get him for a reasonable price, and they didn't do it. He played on a contract year, did really well, and then it's just he played on that year, and then last year was he was injured, and that's his problem. That's what Raider fans, I think, are kind of having a little revisionist history a little bit. They love Josh Jacobs when he was here, right? And now they're all like, well, look at all the games he missed, or he was always had some nagging injury or whatever. It's like, well, he plays running back, so I get that. But at the same time, like, for him to say you got all these guys who work really hard, it's like, I don't think it was a player's issue, buddy. I mean, in terms of top-end talent, the issue with the Raiders for the last 5 years has not been that there's been bad top-end talent. There's been good top-end talent. The issue with the Raiders has been that some of the other parts of the roster are depleted, especially on defense, and it's finally starting to even out. But I thought it was very telling where he said, basically, hey, Tom Telesco said, come back on a discount. There was another part of that interview or another statement he gave where he said him and Tom barely even talked or not at all. So there really maybe wasn't any interest on the part of the Raiders in bringing him back. And when I say the Raiders, I'm not talking about Antonio Pierce. I do think Antonio Pierce wanted Josh Jacobs back. And I think Josh Jacobs alluded to that in the statement I read. But I don't know. I look at it and it's the same old narrative of, oh, am I ever going to get out of here? Am I going to, you know what? Dude, you made it to the playoffs one year. You didn't get it done. You had a career rushing year another year. You had a good 4 or 5 years with the Raiders. Why shit on it? Go to Green Bay, be happy. Likewise, Raider fans, don't shit on the guy either. Like, he left. And if you're going to buy into your own ideas, not you, but other people, where running backs aren't that valuable, then you should be perfectly happy with having a cheap Zamir White. So that's kind of my opinion on it. And if Zamir White does what he did last year towards the end of the season against teams like the Chiefs and stuff like that, then you should be happy. Is he Josh Jacobs? No. But I also saw Zamir White ball out at Georgia, and I didn't like watching him do it, but I'm glad he's on the Raiders now. So I don't know. And one last thing. I love Josh Jacobs. He's a great player at Alabama. But he's feeling himself a little bit too. He was on teams with Derrick Henry and, Damian Harris and Najee Harris. I mean, those teams were stacked. So for him to come in with this idea of, I get some initial shock of losing your first NFL game, right? But there's y'all are cool with losing? Get out of here. No one wants to lose, but at the end of the day, they know they're not every team is equal in the NFL. And you came from a team that had so many advantages over everybody else that losing was like, what? This can't happen. Yeah. So I don't put too much stock into that. What I do put stock into, though, is this. Coming back at a discount after I've had some good years. And I'm just like, he's got some merits there. But everything I've read from local Las Vegas media, like Vinny Bonsignori or Hondo Carpenter, is that the Raiders made him a competitive offer, and we're still, I think, are not sure on exactly what all the guarantees and specifics are in his contract in Green Bay. So I wonder if the Raiders came in with less money, and which it sounds like they did, but maybe the guarantees were more. I have no clue. Maybe the opportunities to make more money in Green Bay are higher, but maybe there's a lot of stipulations there where you have to play more than 12 games a year. I have no clue.
Yeah, Josh is really baking on the Packers being really good.
Yeah.
Because during his time with the Raiders, okay, he went to the playoffs once, right? Yeah, just one time. And a lot of stuff went down, obviously the Gruden stuff, and he didn't get along with Josh McDaniels. Everybody thought that was going to be a playoff team, but that really did not happen. So the current contract that Josh Jacobs has with the Packers is 4 years, $48 million. And that's stability. That is our, time where he will be with the team. He's got 4 years with them. He was looking for that guarantee with the Raiders, and the Raiders are willing to do 1 year deals or 2 year deals. And yes, the guaranteed money. I'm not sure what the guaranteed money is with Josh Jacobs, but I think that he just likes the fact that he's going to be on a team for that long.
Yeah.
The whole notion of him being like, yeah, I came from college and Alabama won all the time, and now I'm at the Raiders. It's like, yes, everybody deals with that when they go from college to the pros. It's the shock of losing, and you're like, how do you guys deal with this? And you're just like, well, it helps when you get paid. Obviously, it helps when you get. It obviously helps when you get paid. But the whole notion of like, I wanted to get out. Like the Raiders were so bad. It's not like 2006 where they were like just putrid. And like, I understand there was a lack of success, but to be like, I need to get the hell out of here. It's like, all right, man. You played one season with the Oakland Raiders, and I know how all of the training staff and not the training staff, but the training facilities weren't great and everything. Everyone says that the facility in Las Vegas is fantastic, maybe the best in the league. So, but if you're tired of losing, I get that too. But like the whole like I'm gonna come back on a discount so I could lose, like, well, don't you want to have the mentality that you're gonna win? Like a lot of this kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I get Raider fans, kind of getting upset with Josh Jacobs. He kind of feels like he just shitted on the team and then wanted to leave. And then there's, I guess, a report out there that he texted with Devontae and sent him a picture of Devontae in a Packer uniform from back in the day. And he was like, come back. And Devontae loved it. But that doesn't mean shit to me. Like Devontae's dedicated to the Raiders right now. Behind closed doors, does he probably think like, I don't know about this team? Maybe. But you're never going to hear him say that. And I think Josh is a little too vocal about that. So by all means, man, go to the Packers. And if you don't win this season, if you don't make the playoffs, then how are you going to be like, well, this was a better decision? You have no idea. And the Packers, should be a better team on paper, but I don't know. NFL things changed fast. So I hear what he's saying, and I understand. Yes, he put his body on the line and to take a discount after winning the rushing championship, the rushing title, I should say. Yes, I understand that he was a little upset by that. But to act like it was just like a shit show with the Raiders, that's a little too much for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just it's one of those things where I think he's trying to solidify his decision more in his own mind and maybe other people's minds too. It could be that he's really trying to affirm that decision. But 3 of the 5 years he played for the Raiders, they were in playoff contention until the last week or the second to last week of the season. So it's not like the ship was on fire the whole time. There was chaos that happened. Henry Ruggs, John Gruden, Josh McDaniels, Damon Arnett. Like there was a lot of stuff going on, but at the same time, like he got to train in one of the best facilities in the NFL, if not the best. It's close to a college facility. I'm actually going there 2 Sundays from now, and just to look around and do some things. But it's to me, it's like he's trying to make himself feel good about the decision, and he got his security. He got his long-term security taken care of. So that's great for him. I hope he has a good season. But this idea of, that it was like, oh, doom and gloom around the Raiders facility, especially after AP just took over, it's the complete opposite. Yeah, I mean, you've even had guys like Davante Adams go, like Davante Adams is on record saying, I'm a Raider and I want to be here. If I didn't want to be here, I wouldn't be here. So, and Max Crosby is a consummate leader right now, even if he had to press some buttons to try to get his way on the AP thing. But for all intents and purposes, he's like, I want this to work.
Yeah, I want to get to Max Crosby a little bit here, but real quick, speaking of former Raiders, breaking news from Ian Rappaport. Giants tight end and turned rapper Darren Waller has informed the Giants that he does plan on retiring at the age of 31 after just one season with the New York Giants. And he's obviously, his name's come up recently, the divorce from Kelsey Plum and the music video that was incredibly awkward. And then him like rapping about TMZ in his backyard when he was shirtless. Listen, the story of Darren Waller is incredible. I'm not going to knock the story of him going from all of his troubles with drugs and not panning out with the Baltimore Ravens to then rejuvenating his career with the Raiders. That was incredible to see that happen in 2019, and him and John Gruden, him giving him a second chance and him being a great success story. Him and Max Crosby, from where they were with their struggles with addiction to where they went in their careers, commend them 100% on that. Things got weird with Darren Waller, though. Not going to lie. When he, the injuries kind of got there a little bit, he didn't play as much, and then he wanted to get paid. And Josh McDaniels didn't see him as the focal point tight end of that offense. And I, at one point, thought that he was in the conversation with George Kittle and Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews as being one of the best tight ends of football. But that's gone away now. A year ago, I was like, what the hell are the Raiders doing trading a third-round pick just to get rid of Darren Waller? Now, I kind of understand it because it's clear that he does not see football as the number one priority. He's got other avenues, and that's fine. If he wants to do the rap stuff, by all means, you have all the time in the world now. And he got the podcast stuff. But I think the Raiders dodged a major bullet here with giving him the contract and then trading him away to the Giants. I still think it's a success story for Darren Waller from where he was, but I would say a career that did not live up to the full potential.
Yeah, I mean, he was picked up off the scrap heap of the Ravens practice squad by John Gruden and Mike Mayock, and he had his best years under those guys, and then the Bisaccia year as well, which is the same as the Gruden year. But they got the best out of him. They got maybe what was his only amount of really productive football. Actually, it is. If you look at his entire career, they got the only amount of production out of him that anybody ever did.
Yep.
So Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels getting rid of him, it looks like a genius move now. And I don't know if you remember, Derek, there was that story where I guess he went AWOL, and it was to propose to Kelsey Plum, right? And McDaniels did not like that and actually let that out in the media. He was like, well, I guess one of our players, Darren Waller's, getting engaged. And Darren Waller did not like the fact that he leaked that to the media basically in a press conference. But I'm pretty sure Josh McDaniels did that because he was pissed about Darren Waller leaving the facility on a bye week and not telling anybody where he was.
Yeah.
So the writing was kind of on the wall. So the Raiders dodged a major bullet. The New York Giants, unfortunately, paid him a lot of money, and they blew up in their face. So I don't know. He's a success story for sure because of what he's done. I will say this though, there's always consequences for certain things, especially with the way that you take care of your body. So maybe his body just isn't up. Like you said, the injuries started piling up, so the nagging injuries especially. Maybe his body just couldn't respond anymore after the lack of self-care that he had for himself for so long. So it's great that he was able to turn things around and get to a better space and mentally and physically and all those kinds of things. But, maybe there is no more football left in there. And maybe this is him just realizing, what, I don't have it anymore. That level I was at 2 or 3 years ago, not only am I not there right now, I don't think I can get back there. So why do it? And so, and it's not like defeatism or anything like that. It's just it's a realization of, I think I'm over it. I don't think I can do this anymore.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. But, it puts teams in a bad position. Like the Giants didn't pay him that contract, but they inherited that contract from the Raiders.
Yes.
And now they're like, all right, well, that's one less target we have for Daniel Jones, whoever's going to play quarterback this season. So I get it. In this new day and age of the NFL, I think a lot of people back in the day, like when Barry Sanders retired early, everyone was like, what the hell is quitting on the team? It's different. We get it. CT and everything involved, your body breaks down a lot quicker in life if your career is prolonged. So if you want to go, you want to go. I get it. I respect that. But I can also say in the process, the Raiders dodged a bullet here, I think.
yeah.
And I think they got a better player. I shouldn't say that. Brock Bowers looks like the real deal, but who's to say what he's going to be like in the NFL? So I commend Darren Waller for turning his life around. It's a fantastic story, and I look forward to seeing what he does in his next, career, whatever he wants to do. I just hope it's better music than the one I heard about with Kelsey Plum. That was a tough listen.
Who's the better rapper, Darren Waller or Damon Arnett?
I haven't heard Damon Arnett stuff.
Yeah, well, I don't think you need to. But.
Yeah, I will say, I didn't like the Kelsey Plum song. The freestyle he had on his porch or his backyard, where he was like referencing Byron Leftwich picking up his teammates. I was like, that's not a bad line. It's not a bad line from Darren Waller.
Some good deep cut Byron Leftwich college moments.
Yeah, exactly. Marshall.
Yep.
You brought up Max Crosby on. He did a recent interview with Jim Rome where he was talking about how he believes in UFOs. He claims he saw aliens when he was leaving the game against Miami last year. But the bigger quote that I think came out of that interview was they were talking about how he loves being a Raider. And, there was the whole thing of, are they going to hire Antonio Pierce as head coach? And he basically went on his podcast and said, if they don't hire Antonio Pierce, I want to trade. Yep. And they hired Antonio Pierce. Everybody got what they wanted. And now Max Crosby is happy. They reworked his contract. He's making more money this season. But this is what he told Jim Rome. No offense to LeBron and those dudes. I won't give them some heat, but took the easy road traveled. That's not the way I look at it. I'm going to be a Raider for life, which is, a big contrast to saying I want to be traded if you're not going to get the right coach for me. So I appreciate Max Crosby being like, I want to be a Raider. Like, this is kind of the Derek Carr thing he said a year ago, or not a year ago. Was it 3-4 years ago, where he was like, if I ever got traded or cut from the Raiders, I would retire. And that obviously did not happen. But with Max, I appreciate it because he fits the Raider, mentality and what you think of a Raider. Very like, the Matt Stork. He kind of reminds me of Ted Hendricks in a way. But it's just kind of funny to me that, months ago he was willing to put his Raider career on the line and say, if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, then I want the fuck out of here. And now he's like, okay, I'm a Raider for life now.
It shows me two things. I do think he does believe right now that he's a Raider for life, and I hope it stays that way because he's a phenomenal player and I love watching him. And I still think he's disrespected in terms of some of these rankings and stuff. Not that they mean anything, but he impacts every play he's on the field. It's amazing to watch. But I do think that there was so much. I mean, it's amazing to think this, but I think it's true that Josh McDaniels was so bad for that organization that there were people like Max Crosby who now say they're a Raider for life kind of thing that were like, I just got to get the hell out of here unless we get this one thing. And that one thing was Antonio Pierce. That's how bad the McDaniels kind of era was. But at the same time, I only think you get one of those, right? So Max Crosby, like, say this AP thing doesn't work out, right? I don't think he can go campaign again and say, well, I want this guy, right? And expect the same result. I think you get one of those and that's it. Like, you don't, especially in the NFL, it's not like the NBA where you can be LeBron James and be like, nah, I don't like this coach. Let's get a new one. In the NFL, there's 52 players and there's a whole organization that deals with everything. So I think he got his one. They got their way on the one thing, but it definitely is a total change in mentality, and hopefully it's a good thing for the Raiders.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap up today. I think that Antonio Pierce got this job based on the players wanting him and the fans wanting him. And if you had to ask Mark Davis, I'm sure he was like, okay, let's go with it. I don't think that he's going to get a long leash as head coach. with how many big names are out there, whether it's Vrabel or Belichick or, Ben Johnson, any of these other big name guys that are going to be available this offseason, I think that Antonio Pierce is going to have a short leash as head coach of the Raiders. And it might be a 1-year thing where they need to see significant change and most likely a playoff berth in order for him to keep his job. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong here. If that happens, then is Max Crosby going to freak out because they fired Antonio Pierce after 1 season? I think a lot of fans could be like, that's unfair. You can't just give up 1 season or 1.5 with how he was interim last season. Look, I get that, but also you're in a competitive division with the likes of Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. And if you don't see a significant change from the Raiders this season, then I would say like you're lacking in the head coach department. Now, you could also say that they haven't figured out the quarterback position either. Gardner Minshew is not the answer. Aiden O'Connell's not the answer. But how long are you willing to wait? Like, are we just going to go through another losing season because everybody likes Antonio Pierce? I think I think he deserved the job, but he also needs to show that he should retain the job as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, so he won. Like, let's look at it as a championship fight. He won the belt. Now he's got to defend it. It's that same thing, same mentality. So he's got to show the organization reasons why they should retain him and keep him going forward. And that would be having a successful season. I think a successful season for them is 10 wins. So, and I think that gets them to the playoffs. That should. But I think, let's put it this way. I think if they go to the playoffs and they're 9-8, I think there's a chance that he's not retained. I think it's a 10-win type deal or bust for Antonio Pierce. I don't anticipate, even if things would have to go horribly wrong for them to get rid of him in the middle of the season. I think he'll ride out the entire campaign with them, but I think they're going to have to win 10 games. I think they're going to have to go at least 4-2 in the division. So what's the easy route on 4-2 in the division? It's sweeping the Chargers and sweeping Denver and losing to Kansas City twice. But I think those are the kinds of things that he's going to have to get accomplished to keep that job going forward. Can they do it? If the defense is as good as advertised as it was in the second half last year under him, and they continue that and they even get a middle-of-the-road offense with Luke Getsy as their OC, then yeah, they can do it. But there's not margin for error with this team, amazingly, even with all the good players on the outside that they have. And the reason is because we still don't know what that quarterback position looks like. Yeah. I think Gardner Minshew will be the backup this season, at least starting that way. I think Aiden O'Connell is much closer to being the answer at quarterback for the Raiders than Gardner Minshew is, but that doesn't mean that you're solidified there. Yeah. I think they're, as an organization, are still going to try to get better there somehow. The opportunity just didn't materialize this season. I do think they made a good decision by not getting Justin Fields. I would have taken the flyer on Russell Wilson, but we'll see how that works out in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I don't think there's much margin for error for this team. I think it's very much going to be, they're going to come out smelling like a rose and everyone's going to go, wow, what a surprise. This was a great job by Antonio Pierce and the rest of the players. They won 10 games and they had a really good season. Or it's going to be, they were 8-9 and this is kind of where they're stuck right now. So changes are going to need to be made. And I don't know if some of the big names are the answers down the road, but I think Antonio Pierce understands that. And I think a lot of these players who went out of their way and put their kind of necks on the line for him are going to be playing with that as maybe some added juice. And that can be very powerful where there's actually players who are playing for a coach. And, you know, it's not college football, so you can't put a whole ton of stock into that, but it's still an extra little bit of edge that you have going into a season.
Yeah, I mean, last year I think they played for him, and I don't think they really loved going from Josh McDaniels to him. But this year's going to be different. And I know, like in the chat here, Ernie1 says 10 wins with Minshew and AOC. That's crazy.
No. That's not. I didn't say they would get 10 wins, Ernie. I'm saying they need 10 wins for him to keep his job.
Yeah, that could be the case, and that may just be you and I thinking that and putting pressure on him. That they may just be fine with 8 and 9. Like, okay, we're going in the right direction, even though it's the same record they had a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 wins seems like a lot. I don't know if they're going to get that this season. I would say, yeah, 8 and 9 or 9 and 8. But yeah, I don't know how long they can go about the Antonio Pierce era if it's not going to mean that they're going to have, some pretty, instant success. But also I acknowledge that Gardner Minshew to me is not. I mean, like he got the Colts in a almost playoff berth last season, but I don't know, man. That division's going to be tough. I mean, like I said, all the big name head coaches that are in there, and if you said on paper right now, probably it's Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, then Broncos, but yeah. And yeah, like Ernie says, I know, but Ernie says, I know that's a lot of wins to have to keep this job or keep his job. I agree, but there's a part of me that thinks that maybe, like Mark Davis has to sell things in Vegas and he has to see a change. And there are a lot of big names available out there, head coaching wise. Would Belichick coming to the Raiders, be weird? Absolutely, it would be, especially after Josh McDaniels, the tenure there, and
he'll be the OC.
Exactly, like Bill wants Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. He likes him as his OC, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation we have more when the season starts. But I do believe that Antonio Pierce is going to have. He's going to have to make significant changes. Well, not changes, but there's going to have to be an increase in wins in order to get him away from the hot seat stuff, because that could be interesting.
Yeah. So, like I said, I put that number at 10 wins for him to keep his job. 9 and 8, maybe if they go to the playoffs, he can keep it. But I just don't see a scenario where they go 8 and 9, 9 and 8, or less than that, and he keeps his job. I think Mark Davis, Tom Telesco, they get together and go, you know what? We love you, AP. Thank you for what you were able to do the year prior kind of thing, but we have too much talent in terms of some of the money that we've allocated to other guys to have seasons like this.
Yeah. And, the Tom Telesco dynamic with him, we'll see how that works, because usually you got to be in tandem with your head coach and general manager. And when you hire a general manager that's, not in sync with your head coach, that could be dicey. So not saying that I think Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco are going to blow up on each other, but, Josh McDaniels handpicked Dave Ziegler. Kyle Shanahan handpicked John Lynch. And sometimes it's a good decision, sometimes it's a bad decision. The John Lynch one obviously was great. Mm-hmm. But if they're not together, then it could be problematic. So that's another thing to keep an eye out with the Raiders. That's all I got for today, Alon. Anything else you want to bring up before we call it a day?
No, not particularly. I would say go watch some Giants baseball, everybody, because they have I don't know. I mean they're losing right now, but just they ended up losing. Okay. But hey, it's even against a Texas team that isn't what they were last year yet. To be able to go down to Arlington and go win a couple of games and win a series, that's entertaining. And I don't know, but they're definitely more entertaining than the A's.
Yeah, I mean,
and it didn't start that way. The A's kind of a month ago were more entertaining.
I will say Mason Miller. I went Friday night to watch the A's. That guy is the real deal. I just hope they. Yeah. I know a lot of A's fans. They just like, oh, they're going to keep him. They're going to keep him. I don't know. You never know.
Why would they? When have they ever kept anybody?
I mean, bring him to sack. By the way, before we get out of here, I want to mention that real quick. The neutral site thing with the A's now. I mean, you live in Las Vegas. I don't know if this team is getting to Vegas, man. Because while I hate the fact they're going to Sacramento, I will acknowledge that they probably will get a good turnout. Because people want to see sports there. And I'm sure a lot of Sac fans will go to the A's games. Vegas, you live there, Alon. Are people excited for the A's coming to Vegas?
People are excited for a Major League Baseball team coming to Las Vegas. It doesn't matter whether it's the A's or anybody else.
Yes. And this whole thing now where they're going to play 10% of their games at neutral sites, to me sounds like you're covering your ass for something that's going on with Vegas. Dave Cavill came out and said, like, well, it's a good thing to build the brand. You had a good brand. What the fuck are you doing? Could have neutral sites for baseball games? That's ridiculous. And if I had to say right now, I don't know if you have your heart set on this. I don't think the A's make it to Vegas. I think they'll end up being Sacramento's team.
If they stay in Sacramento, that'd probably be a good thing for their organization. In some ways, right?
Yeah.
I think if they come to Las Vegas, that'll be the best financial decision. I think that they will come right now, but I don't think it's a slam dunk per se, but I still think the chances are pretty good. That being said, I did read that tweet about the nearly 10%. And so I kind of, did the math on it. I was like, okay, 16 games, that would mean 8 away games, 8 home games, whatever. However you want to break it down. To me, it just sounded like international series written all over it. They want to do two or three international series a year. And I was like, all right, I don't know. It is what it is. I think it would be a smart move, not for the reasons Dave Cavill says, building a brand. I just think it's dollar signs that are easy to cash in on. You go to Japan and play another Major League Baseball team in Japan, you're going to sell out. Same thing in Korea, even Mexico. It doesn't matter. But that very much to me seems like if you do that, it's kind of like a one-off type deal. It would definitely, if you are going to move to Vegas, it'd be a thing that you do when you're in Sacramento, not when you're in Las Vegas. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I have my doubts. Alon, thank you as always for filling in, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And NBA Finals, I think, tipping off in 4 hours here.
4 hours, and just a quick update. Luka is questionable. He has been downgraded from probable to questionable. I'll give you the exact injury designation. Luka has been downgraded from probable to questionable due to a orthotic contusion ahead of tonight's game 2.
Bet his points over because it went down. I bet it went down because of that. So take his points over. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But everybody enjoy the game tonight, and me and Steven will be back on Wednesday night. We'll recap game 2 and 3 of the NBA Finals. Alon, thank you as always, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And for all the Caitlin Clark haters out there, Caitlin, keep doing what you're doing because that's just their opinion, man.
Well done.